Tonight's episode of Legacy Battle is brought to you by Atlas Benefits.
Atlas Benefits has solutions for your insurance needs. Atlas Benefits can help you obtain Medicare, health, or life insurance and employee benefits. You can find them on the web at www.atlasbenefits.com.
Or you can contact Rob Ducey or Roy Smith at 727-600-2892 and mention Legacy Battle Podcast. Atlas Benefits has all the solutions for your insurance needs. Enjoy the show. This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I am Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Penn State Collegiate All-Star Kevin Adams, Ball State athlete Paul Habicott. We're joined tonight by a former MLB closer, played 10 seasons with the Brewers, Rangers, Red Sox, and of course the LA Dodgers. He's a three-time All-Star with 187 career saves, 3.47 ERA. He's a two-time Rolaids Relief Award winner. Got a World Series in 2007 when he went on to the Boston Red Sox. In 2004, he was a saves leader. Ladies and gentlemen, Cy Young Award winner, Eric Gagne. Eric, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So we're going to talk to Eric after about his career. Tonight's debate is the top 5 closers after Mariano Rivera. We all kind of came in an agreement that it's Rivera and everyone else. So tonight's top 5 after Rivera. And we're going to start this out with Trevor Hoffman.
All right, Trevor Hoffman. It's Trevor time. Cue up AC/DC's Hell's Bells. Perfect song for him. You know, you hear the gongs, you hear the musical buildup, you see the entrance. Here comes one bad mofo onto the field. The intimidation factor, it's already working. Trevor Hoffman gets to the mound. You know he's bringing that fastball. You know he's bringing that deceptive changeup. He's probably going to get a couple Ks and close the game down. Not only was this guy an amazing closer, he stayed consistent for a very long time. He made 7 All-Star teams, was the Relief Man Award winner twice, was the NL Saves leader twice as well. And he has the highest strikeout rate of any reliever ever. No one had more career saves in the National League, and no one had more seasons with 40-plus saves. 9 seasons topping that mark. And 6 of the career records that Mariano Rivera eventually topped belonged to Hoffman, including most career saves and most career games finished. What I liked about him most was just how money he was. He converted 88.8 of his save opportunities, and that is the 3rd highest rate ever. So you heard that gong, you heard that Malcolm Young guitar, and you knew that Hoffman was coming in to close the game out.
Eric, when I think of Trevor Hoffman, I feel like he's second all time in saves, but he's not the one that comes to the top of people's head. Like, you don't ever hear, oh, Trevor Hoffman. What do you think of the reasoning for that is? He did it so quietly.
I think just his style, the way he got guys out. I mean, he just got it in. You know, first of all, when he was at I think it was in the Marlins when he was younger. He threw a lot harder. I think the last 3 or 4 or 5 years when he has a rotator cuff surgery and he came back, he really relied on the changeup, and I think that's why they love lights out. They love hard gas, and they love to blow people away. And I don't think he was doing that. I think he was a really smart pitcher. And, he's actually a hitter. When he was younger in the minor leagues, I think he was a shortstop or something like that. So you could tell as a pitcher, you could tell he was a little bit ahead of the hitters. You can tell like he's been there before. So he really knew what he was doing. But, like you said, Hell's Bells, 601 saves. I mean, it's hard to argue with this guy not to be one of the great top 3 easily. But he wasn't as flashy as you would expect. But he was perfect for San Diego.
Great pitcher. Doesn't get enough respect, in my opinion. Let's move on to let's go Jonathan Papelbon.
Papelbon drafted 4th round in 2003 by the Red Sox. He played 3 seasons in the minors before making his debut in the majors. Played 12 seasons, most notably with the Red Sox. He made the All-Star game in 4 consecutive seasons from 2006 to 2009. He won the 2007 Delivery Man of the Year award, and he's a World Series champion in 2007. He had finished his career with a 2.44 ERA, 808 strikeouts, which that's decent for a closer. 368 saves. He was a 6-time All-Star in total. He had good velocity. His 4-seam fastball, he was throwing it around 95 miles per hour. He had a good slider, good splitter. He holds the single-season record for most saves in a season by a Red Sox rookie. Holds MLB record for the most consecutive scoreless innings to start a postseason. He had 25 straight innings in the postseason with no runs let up. First pitcher in Red Sox history to have 3 30-save seasons. He's one of only 2 pitchers to record 25 saves in each of his first 5 full seasons, and recorded 30 saves each one of those seasons. He was the fastest pitcher in MLB history to reach 200 career saves until Craig Kimbrell beat his record. He's the Phillies' all-time saves leader. He's also the Red Sox all-time saves leader. He had 219 saves with them. He definitely deserves and has the stats to be in our top 5 tonight.
Also has the second lowest ERA of everybody we're talking tonight, 2.44. So, Eric, you played in Boston with him. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about him? How did he prepare?
Well, Papelbon is a different cat. I mean, every closer has got to be a little off a little bit. I think we're all got a little something going on in our we're a little bit different. I mean, we're wired a little differently, and Paps was one of those guys. He went out. He was a great competitor, and he was a really, really big team guy. That's what I really noticed. I mean, every closer, I think, are very team-oriented because you really, obviously, we're in the game when we win, so trying to preserve a win. But this guy, what we're really impressed with him, he's a big presence on the mound. You could tell when he was on the mound, his attitude was just amazing because he was a big guy. He didn't look as big as he really was. He's a big guy, big country guy, amazing split finger fastball. I think that was his money pitch. He threw hard, really hard. I think back then, if you look at his vertical movement and everything else, he'll be on top of probably top of the league. He's one of those guys that just kept doing it with the Boston. It's really, really hard to pitch in Boston. I mean, under a lot of pressure all the time. I think they really took care of him well over there. They managed his safe situation well, but he's just a special guy. I loved him, and especially when he did the Dropkick Murphy, won the World Series over there. So when he did that song came up, it was amazing. He basically ran that city. I mean, what Papelbon was doing good. He was closing games. The city was happy, and he wasn't. The city was really a little bit different. So that's what I love about Boston. And obviously, I thought really highly of him because I had a no-trade clause to go from when I was with the Rangers and I got traded over there. I wanted to go to Boston, and I thought I was pretty good. I was at the end of my career, but I was willing to go in the 8th inning because Papelbon was there and they had a great bullpen, and he's a very special guy. I see him top 5 for sure.
Kevin, you think maybe Papelbon is more recognized than Hoffman because he pitched in Boston and Hoffman's been in Milwaukee and San Diego?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of obvious that the big markets usually get the most attention, and they can also afford, the better teams. And if there is good talent in, say, Pittsburgh, Nutting, the owner, will trade him away. So, I think
Plus, Trevor Hoffman's not fighting anybody in the dugout, man.
when you play in one of those historic cities, the big market cities, you definitely, the media attention's on you a lot more, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Francisco Rodriguez, K-Rod, a righty. Couple of righties we're talking about tonight. Pitched 16 years. That's a pretty long time. Pitched for the Angels, Mets, Brewers, Orioles, and Tigers. He amassed 437 saves. That's good for 4th all time. So maybe he should be in the top 5. We'll see. Led the league in saves 3 times, including 2008, where he basically obliterated the single season saves record, put up 62 saves. I do believe that kind of he still had a good career after, but I think pitching that many times in that season might have been a little too much for his arm. But it's still a record today. K-Rod's a 6-time All-Star, finished top 5 for Cy Young 3 times, finished 6th for MVP in 2008. It's hard for closers to finish high on that MVP race there. He also led the league 3 times in games finished. Career ERA 2.86, higher than probably half the people we're talking about tonight, or lower than half the people we're talking about tonight. So, rookie year, he tied Randy Johnson's record for most postseason wins in a playoffs with 5, and he helped the Angels win that 2002 World Series, against the Giants. So that was pretty big there, going up against Bonds. And, of course, he's 2-time Rolaids Relief Man Award winner. So that no longer exists, that trophy, but back when it did, he picked up 2 of them. So, Eric, with K-Rod, so he basically had 4 pitches. How many pitches does a typical closer have? Is it they rely on their fastball a lot?
Yeah, fastball and then a secondary pitch. I mean, usually we're washed up, starters. I mean, that's kind of what closers became. I think it's just a lot of us are not, at least with the Dodgers, that's what you see. You see big prospects go in, get some innings, but I think closers are just like I said, it's a little different. But K-Watt was one of those guys that just fit right in that mode, right in that mold. And I don't believe he had that many pitches. I think, he worked on his changeup late. His fastball, his slider was electric. I mean, that slider is one of the best sliders I've seen. It was a very, very, very hard. I mean, the spin rate was ridiculous. And it was one of those that you could see. He was hiding the ball really well, short arm, very, very difficult to pick up. I think that's, you put him 1 inning, the way he did it was perfect. I think he was in the right situation. Right. I think he went a little bit under the radar. I mean, you're talking about West Coast closers that go under the radar. I mean, there are a lot of guys like Trevor Hoffman, this guy. I mean, talk about just – a lot of guys went on the East Coast. You get the attention. The West Coast is a little later, so guys get a little more tired. But I think it's he is lights out. He's one of the greatest closer, but you only need 2 pitches really to be a closer. But I don't think he had 4. I think he had maybe 3. I thought I had 3. I had 2 really good ones, and my curveball was pretty average. And but I think closers you only need 2 pitches. Get over strikes. Throw a lot of strikes.
Maybe these guys were under the radar because of some closer in LA getting all the press there, getting that Cy Young. Who knows? All right, let's move on.
Probably something.
Let's go on. Let's go move to our oldest pitcher tonight, Raleigh Fingers.
Roland Glenn. I think for the ease of doing this, I'll just refer to him as Raleigh. But he played 17 years in the MLB, born 8/25/46. So we're going old school here. Raleigh played for the Athletics, Padres, and Brewers. He was known, of course, for the handlebar mustache, which always seemed to be well groomed, perfectly in place. When he entered the league, he kind of had an impact for this position going forward. It was more common to leave the starter in if there was a lead. He's kind of credited back then for defining the role of closer for that time and going forward into the future. Kind of an interesting note about him and how he ended up where he did was the LA Dodgers offered Fingers a signing bonus of $20,000, but Fingers kind of leveraging himself and hedging his bets. He didn't think he'd have a good chance getting to the majors with them because they had some dude named Sandy Koufax and then Don Drysdale. They were already winning, a ton of pennants. Their farm system was stacked full of players, so he ends up turning them down, and he signs for the Kansas City Athletics back then for $13,000, so a little bit less. On Christmas Eve on 1964. So they're kind of unsure how to use him. They're actually thinking about putting him in the outfield or maybe pitching him. And I think we know how that ended up. He gets to the Hall of Fame being a Hall of Fame closer. So he finished his career actually with a losing record, 114, 118. Got just under 1,300 strikeouts, 1299. He had a 2.90 ERA, 341 saves, which at the time of his retirement was a record until Jeff Reardon broke it in 92. Bittersweet, no doubt, is it was also the same year he got elected into the Hall of Fame. Raleigh's a 7-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champ, first relief pitcher to win AL MVP and Cy Young Award in the same season, 1981. World Series MVP of 74, 4 times, Mike, 4 times Rural Age Relief Man Award, 77, 78, 80, and 81. 3-time MLB saves leader. 34 jersey, of course, retired by the A's and the Brewers. As for the mustache, man, that's like Gagne's glasses. That gets its own fame. Baseball Reference ranks Fingers' mustache as the best in history. In addition to his pitching ability, Fingers was noted for his waxed handlebar mustache, which, if you guys didn't know, he originally grew to get a $300 signing bonus from Athletics owner Charles O. Finley. That's Raleigh Fingers. He's got to be on there because he almost defined this role.
So, Eric, with Raleigh, he was pitching as a closer back in the day when they pitched more than one inning a lot of times. That's almost completely unheard of today. But what were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you know what? I love that talk about this old school and new school closers, because I think this is where I talked to Goose Gossage. I play golf with Goose, and just these guys, like these are the original, the OGs of closers, OGs of relievers. These are the guys that really kind of like define, like, you know, you talk about Roll Finger, it reminds me of Salvador Dali's mustache. You know, these guys are just like, they define the role. This is the reason why Eric Gagne had his song coming in and Welcome to the Jungle. These are the reason why the K-Rods of the world or something. And I think this is like, we, you know, as much as we, you know, the old schools hate the new school don't understand, you know, vice versa. I think it has to be said something. It's very hard to close games. It's very hard to go 2 innings. It's very hard to go to 3 innings. And the way they did it, they really, I mean, there's basically, you know, he's got MVPs, he's got Cy Young, he's got, I mean, 341 saves. That's insane. I mean, this is dominating. This is where you take over a team and you put the team on your back and, you know, let's go. I've done it as a closer for 1 inning at a time, once in a while. I mean, that's just different breed. These are different animals, I think. And it's hard to like compare them to K-Rod, to me, or to, you know, Trevor. This is just old school. This is just different. These guys are different. They're just win every day. I mean, they just got they got the job done. I think guys like these are the OGs, I think.
Brian, I know you were a Goose Gossage fan, and he's part of our shout outs tonight. So we'll just throw that out there. Let's move on to Lee Smith.
All right, Lee Smith, another old school guy. Pulitzer Prize winning sports writer Jim Murray once said, "Lee Smith is the best 1-inning pitcher I ever saw. He was the best at smuggling a game into the clubhouse in history." In fact, Smith smuggled, or better known as saved, 478 games during his career. He held the record for several years until it was finally broken by Trevor Hoffman and then Mariano Rivera. Smith made 7 All-Star teams, led the league in saves 4 times, and was the Relief Man Award winner 3 times. He was a very imposing figure on the mound. He's standing at 6'6", 265 pounds. He had a great fastball, a slider, and a forkball. Smith's longevity was impressive. He led the majors in saves at the age of 36 and made the All-Star team at the age of 37. It's interesting to note that Smith averaged 3.72 outs per save, while his contemporaries like Rollie Fingers and Goose Gossage and Bruce Sutter all averaged between 4.5 to 5 outs per save. Finally, in 2019, Lee Smith was immortalized at Cooperstown. Well-deserved, because he was one heck of a relief pitcher.
How is it a guy like Lee Smith, he sets all these records, one of the greatest closers of all time. How does it take somebody like him so long to get in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's another guy go under the radar. I think undervalued. I think he came in from such a great relievers that would go 2 or 3 innings or 4 innings almost. Then you go to 1 inning special. He's one of the first specialists. Him and Eckersley. These guys are just the first specialists that, you know what, give us 3 outs. And I think that's when people start looking at the game, looking backwards, getting outs from the 9th inning back and see how can we work that way. And the Dodgers did that. Jim Tracy was one of the best at doing that. I mean, he knew he was going to get outs in the 9th, in the 8th, and the 7th, and they set it up that way. I mean, he was managing the game backwards, and that's like, these are, you know, you look at your weapons in the bullpen, it does change the way you're going to bunt a guy bunt over, you're going to let him swing at 3-0, you're going to try to get, you know, how are you going to attack the game? You need 2 or 3 or 4 runs. That changes the whole game. So to me, I think that's where this guy, one of the first guys to find it, I think is very, very underrated. I don't know why. I don't understand why. Probably because it was a transition time where the old school and then the new school, they didn't like each other probably. Like this is how they used to do it. That's not, I think he's one of the guys that put up time, put up numbers. I've seen him pitch at the end of his career, maybe 5 or 6 times videos, but he was just a big presence. I think he's the first guy, one of those guys that started doing the routine, sleep before the game or during the game until the 5th or 6th inning and just really wake up, get 3 outs and go. I think we all got a routine out of him. And he's one of those guys that you don't understand why he didn't get that much credit, but I guess it's just a transition period.
Well, you mentioned Dennis Eckersley, so let's move on to Dennis Eckersley.
Definitely top 3, hands down. Should be number 2 after Rivera. Nicknamed Eck, played between 75 and 98. Pitched for Indians, Red Sox, Cubs, A's, Cardinals. He actually had some success as a starter, but he's most known as a closer, becoming the first of 2 pitchers in MLB history to have both a 20-win season and a 50-save season in a career. Eckersley was elected into the Hall of Fame in 2004, first year of eligibility. Finished with a 3.50 ERA, just over 2,400 strikeouts and 390 saves. He was the 75 Rookie Pitcher of the Year for the AL. He was a 6-time All-Star. He was the 88 ALCS MVP, 89 World Series champ, AL MVP and Cy Young Winner in 92, 2-time MLB saves leader in 88-92. His number was retired by the A's. He's in the A's Hall of Fame. He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. He's on the MLB all-time team. He won AL Rolaids Relief Man Award in 88-92. He had a very noticeable pitching technique with the high leg kick and this kind of side arm throwing motion. He had precise accuracy. Goose Gossage actually said once about him that he could hit a gnat in the butt with a pitch if he wanted to. I thought that was pretty funny. He was aggressive, had an intimidating stare when he was on the mound. As a closer, he was big on pitching the sinker, backdoor slider. He was ranked in 1999 98th on the Sporting News 100 Greatest Baseball Players of all time. Bleacher Report article puts him as number 2 for the best closer of all time, right behind Rivera, in front of Hoffman. And then Fox Sports listed him as number 3 behind Rivera and Hoffman. So he definitely deserves to be in the top 3.
Eric, of all the guys we're talking about tonight, is Eckersley have like the biggest intimidation factor?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wrote, like, when I look at these guys, I'm like taking notes. I'm like, what comes out? Like, there's their word, like his attitude. I mean, even his attitude right now when he's an announcer, when he does something with his hair flowing and everything else, his mustache and stuff, and it's pretty special. Anytime you have anybody get voted for AL MVP or anything to MVP as a reliever, you're like, okay, he's done something different. But I felt like he was under the radar because he's never a guy that's been throwing hard. He never threw it that hard. Amazing slider, amazing sinker slider guy, but he's just a big game pitcher. He's just got guts. He just pitch on guts, and he's a fail starter. I talk about fail starter. He reminds me a little bit of the way I took it. I mean, the way he pitched, he was setting up hitters. He was a pitcher throwing for 1 inning. But, I mean, you could tell the difference with the starter guys is just full gas in the 9th inning. A guy can really get outs. And I think he understood how to pitch. And to me, he's one of the best pitchers. It reminded me of John Smoltz. John Smoltz was a great starter. He came in relief, and he got outs the way he knew how to learn as a starter. He was able to translate that or, turn that into a closing role. And I think that's what Eckersley's learned a lot. I learned a lot. I failed so much as a starter. I think that's what made me a better closer, to fail a lot. And I think Eckersley had a little bit of the same route. And it's pretty impressive to watch the way he does it, because he doesn't – I mean, if you look at his stuff, it wasn't that impressive. He just got outs. He understood how to get outs, and he understood what the hitters are trying to do. It's just a smart pitcher.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, Eckersley, yeah, he's one of the greatest of all time. But when we think Eckersley, are we maybe thinking what he gave up, Kirk Gibson?
Yeah, epic moment in history, but I think like Eric does, the hair, the intimidation factor. I mean, Kirk Gibson, I will say the one thing about that moment is that seemed to transcend like reality. That Kirk Gibson moment seemed to be meant to be no matter who was pitching. So I don't think of Eckersley being the GOAT in that circumstance. I think of Kirk Gibson. I just want to celebrate him and what he did. I think it was meant to be.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that. Let's move
And
on.
I've seen that home run a lot.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. Gibson just did it. And that was the Dodgers. It was the time for the Dodgers in '88. So they needed it.
We always get in the habit of like ripping somebody, man. Sometimes it's just because the dude got a hold of one and he limped around the bases, and it's just going to be an epic time in history. That's all it is.
Right. Let's move on to Billy Wagner. Billy the Kid. I seem to always have guys that got nicknames. I love it. 16 years for the Astros, Phillies, Mets, Red Sox, and Braves. 6th all-time in saves with 422. And then he went out and retired with possibly his best statistical season. So who knows? He wanted to spend time with family. How many more saves he would have had? I mean, he was 38 years old, but he was just awesome at that age. So 7-time All-Star, top 10 Cy Young 2 times. Of all the pitchers with 800 innings pitched, he is number 1 in Ks per 9 at 11.9. And his 33.2% strikeout rate is number 1 all time. And his 187 batting average against is number 1 all time. So if you got a hit off this guy, you want to keep the ball. That's how good he was. And to that lowest, and you can add to that lowest hits per 9 in history. So lots of number 1s here for him in all time. 1999, got that Rule Aids Relief Man Award. I think everybody's got a couple of those tonight. And he was part of a combined no-hitter in 2003. His career ERA, 2.31, is the lowest of any pitcher that we're talking about tonight. That's got to put you in the top 5. All those number 1s and that ERA there. So I love him. I wish he would have stayed around and gave it another 2 years maybe. The Braves certainly could have used him a little longer. But, you know, I guess you got to respect. He wants to spend time with his family. Baseball takes up a lot of time. So Eric, with Wagner, his final season, he gets 37 saves, 7-2, 1.43 ERA. I mean, what makes some guys retire and then other guys, they stay as long as they can. Like they'll pitch in the minor leagues or the Mexican leagues just to keep going.
That's what happens when one of the greatest of all time. I mean, you can do whatever you want. He just walks away. They walk away because they can. You know, he's just made good money, and he knew he's achieved pretty much everything he wanted in his career. So I love it. I mean, I wish I would have walked away when I won on my own terms. You know, I wasn't fortunate to have that, injuries and everything else. So I loved it. I love guys that walk out on their own, and he's had an amazing career. There's nobody that I've ever seen dominate or being that nasty with that slider and the short arm and just coming from off the ground because he's 4'2". I mean, it was pretty amazing to watch him pitch because I was basically same time with him. I mean, he's on my wall for a reason. It's the only lefty on my wall. He was just very dominant. He was one of those guys that he's 100% in the top 5. I don't see – he's another guy that when we talk about under the radar, another guy that goes under the radar because I don't think he gets – not just the way, like Trevor Hoffman got a lot of saves. That guy got a lot of saves, and it was dominant. Every time he got out there, he was dominating. I mean, you talk about the stats you look at. I think when he got on the mound, it was just difficult to pick him up. It was hard to see what he was throwing the ball from, and it was just coming out of his body. It was a weird little short arm, and it was very, very explosive. So, I mean, I'm glad he retired at the age he retired because, I mean, I don't think we would have the same feeling, the same belief or the same idea of what he could do because he was very special.
Yeah, I just feel 2 more years maybe he's up at number 2 in that saves leader. But let's move on to our final pitcher tonight, and we're going back a ways again. John Franco.
Yeah, man. Happy birthday to my guy John Franco, born on this day in 1960. Lefty reliever pitching from 84 to 05, primarily for the Reds and the Mets. I mean, this is another sleeper here. I know I'm not going to bully people into voting for him like Kevin does, but, this guy's kind of underappreciated, not as well known as some of the other names, but this is kind of like a true American dream story. John was of Italian descent living in New York, was the son of a sanitation worker, had a lot of baseball aspirations. He married his high school sweetheart, went on to have a very good career. Started off as about as good as it can be. The freshman at St. John's pitched 2 no-hitters in one season. He was originally selected by the Los Angeles Dodgers on June 8th in 81 in the 5th round of the amateur draft, then traded to the Reds in 83. Once he was kind of up and running, he became known for just being a really reliable, solid starter, 90-mile-an-hour fastball, really tough to hit breaking pitch that sort of breaks away from a right-handed batter, compared to like a screwball maybe. And during an interview, he kind of says to the public, he calls it a circle change, and that was a pitch that seemed pretty unhittable. For the Reds, really solid reliever. They finished in second place 4 years in a row from 85 to 88. John, of course, packs on a couple Roll-Age Relief Man awards to his resume. In 89, he gets traded to the Mets and remains with them until 04, making the playoffs in 99 and the World Series in 2000. Gets another one of those Roll-Age Relief Man in 90. Led the leagues in saves in 88, 90, and 94. All told, John, being under the radar, still has pretty good stats. 424 saves, 5th most in Major League history behind Rivera, to Hoffman, Lee Smith, and Rodriguez, and the most of any left-handed pitcher. 975 strikeouts, 2.89 ERA, so not as low as yours, Mike, but still in the twos. 1245 innings pitched, over 1,000 games pitched, 1,119, 4-time All-Star. Postseason record of 2-0, 1 save, 1.88 ERA, and 15 postseason appearances. So pretty locked down. And he was team captain for the Mets in 01 to 04. John's like me on this show, very underappreciated, very overlooked.
Okay. Eric, tell us your thoughts on Franco.
Well, the screwball, that's what jumps out at me. The screwball in New York, he was New York. I think he fit right in. I think that's the city, especially the Mets. They embrace just a grinder, I think. That's what comes to mind, just a grinder, a guy that just doesn't have a lot, just makes the best out of his talent and then some. And then it's, we looked at 400, whatever save, I can't remember, 470 saves. That's 424 saves. That's a lot of saves for a guy who goes on the radar. It's just in New York. Play for the amazing Mets thing. That's hard to play for those teams. For those teams in New York. And I think for me, the captain, a leader. He's still in New York. He's still representing New York. I think that's what closers are all about. The heartbeat of the city goes with a closer, and I think you could tell. He's a New York guy. You could tell he's proud to be there, and they really, really need guys like this. And I saw him pitch, and nothing special. Just a closer, just gets it done. Just a bulldog, just a guy that just attacks the zone. He reminds me a little bit of a closer, but overall Shizer type, just aggressive, but not a lot of stuff. And it's fun to see that. That's why, to me, that's why I think the fans in New York are very, very attached to him. It's almost like a blue-collar baseball player. Doesn't have a lot, but just gets a lot done.
Brian, let me ask you, how does a guy like John Franco, who pitches in New York, go under the radar and with his stats not get in the Hall of Fame?
I really don't know. I don't really have an answer to that one. The guy is like, we always kind of knew he was around. Every year he's up at the top of the saves list and everything. And then for some reason, after he retires, like everybody forgot about this guy. I can't really explain it.
We're going to throw some quick shout-outs to the pitchers that just missed our list tonight. That was Randy Myers, Jeff Reardon, Craig Kimbrell, Joe Nathan, Kensley Jansen, and Goose Gossage. Jansen's still pitching, so who knows where he's going to end up when it's all said and done. We'll see. All right, let's move into our vote. Paul, you're in the upper left corner. Who are you taking? Top 5 tonight.
I'm going to go Papelbon. Loved his personality, loved his aggressiveness. I guess I got caught up in those 2000s Red Sox rivalries with the Yankees. I'm going Jonathan Papelbon.
Kevin?
I'm going to have to go with Hoffman.
Okay. Brian?
I think we got to get Fingers on here. The OG reliever. I think we got to go with Rolling Fingers.
All right, and there's a lot of good pitchers left. I'm gonna go. I'm going with Eckersley. I know I mentioned the Kirk Gibson home run, but Gosh, I mean, it was like you guys mentioned the hair and the stash. He was scary looking out there on the mound, so I'm taking Eckersley. So, Eric, it goes to you. You got a choice of Billy Wagner, John Franco, Lee Smith, and K-Rod.
Oh, I'm going Billy Wagner. He's on my wall. I got to go with my boy. I got to go with him. I mean, I think for what he's done, it's not a knock on anybody. It's just to make sure that he's recognized top 5, I believe.
Awesome.
As
So
he should be.
that makes tonight's top 5: Trevor Hoffman, Billy Wagner, Dennis Eckersley, Raleigh Fingers, Jonathan Papelbon. That is the top 5 closers after Rivera. Nice job, boys. Let's move into our Q&A for Eric. Let's see who got 2 on the list. Kevin, as usual. First question for you, Kev. Go ahead.
All right. So I want to take you to 2007 Boston. You get traded over there. What was your mindset going into Boston, and how did it feel to win the World Series there with that team?
Yeah, that's it's crazy because I've had a lot of highs and a lot of lows in my career, and the lowest lows was in Boston. When I got traded, it was one of the highest. I wanted to go there. I wanted to be there. I waived my no-trade clause, got there, won the World Series, and I didn't do good. So it was really hard. That's why a lot of closers do good in big markets. It's a big deal. It's very different because, you live and die with your closer, and the city's heartbeat goes with the closer. The city's mood go with it. So to me, it was hard. It was very hard to change roles and everything else, but I wouldn't change anything in the world because I got my World Series ring, and a lot of guys I played for a lot of years didn't get it. So love Boston. I had a hard time, but I had a great time. So it's fun to succeed, but when you fail, you really appreciate when you succeed.
Brian.
Okay, you had what was called a Vulcan changeup. We've only seen a select few use this type of pitch. Can you describe the movement that it creates, and how were you introduced to it?
So it's basically a very regular circle change that you don't really do anything, but it's almost like a Fernando Valenzuela or a Franco, the way they threw their screwball. But mine was just changed the grip a little bit, a little. I guess I modified my grip a little bit. It was a little thin, a little thick, a little deeper in my hand. But it's one of those pitches that I just threw as hard as I could. I just let it go and just trying to really focus on throwing it away from my arm on the inside of the arm. And then the way I learned about this was I saw Pedro Martinez in Montreal. He had huge fingers. I used to watch him basically warm up on the sideline. I would watch him, his arm action and everything else. And when I got to A-ball, my first pitching coach in A-ball was Edwin Correa. He used to pitch in for Texas Rangers, big man, and he taught me how to throw a changeup. So that's basically where I learned it. And, I just learned that arm speed is very efficient. If you can let it go, really throw as hard as you can with different grip, and it usually works out well.
Paul.
I got to channel Eric here real quick. Okay.
I love it.
So, Eric, I represented you in our Canada show with Rob Ducey, and so I remember seeing this list. My question for you is, do you agree with this list on MLB.com, or is there anything you'd switch position-wise or add? And I got number 1, Mariano Rivera, Metallica's Enter Sandman. Number 2, Trevor Hoffman, AC/DC's Hell's Bells. 3 was Papelbon's Dropkick Murphys, as you mentioned. You were number 4 with Guns N' Roses. I mentioned that when I was talking about you in that show. And then Mitch Williams, pretty good. The Trogs, Wild Thing, ended up kind of making a comparison with him and fictional closer Rick Vaughn. Which, would you add anything there? Do you still stand by your choice with Guns N' Roses? What do you think about that MLB list?
Oh yeah, I love it. And to me, I think that's just embodied the role of a closer. Is just a little crazy, a little off, a little bit, a little different. I think music plays a big role in that position as a closer, because it really gets everybody hyped up. It puts you on the edge of your seat. And I wouldn't change. I mean, that's the best feeling in the world. I wish people could be on a mound for 1 or 2 pitches just to feel the adrenaline. It's the best drug in the world. And, you have a good song, you have hopefully good results. But I think all those old school guys that really gave us the chance to become who we became, because we really got 3 outs out of 27. And that's not a lot if you really look at it. But we got all the glory, so we'll take it, and really want to appreciate those guys, the Gossages of the world, the Fingers of the world, and all the old school guys that really did it for us for 3 or 4 innings and gave us a kind of a role. So But I really appreciate it. But it's the best feeling in the world. It's fun.
So from 02 to 04, you dominated, but you pitched a lot of games. Do you feel that maybe they might have overused you and that caused some of your injuries that would come in 05 and 06?
I don't care. I really don't care because, like I said, I wouldn't change anything in the world. And we have, you know, of course, if you look back, I wish I never got hurt, but then I wish I would have ate better. I wish I would have taken care of my body a little better when I was younger. There's a lot of what ifs, but I had a great career. I had great coaching. I had great teammates. And no, I mean, that's my mentality. You give me the ball, I'm going to go get outs, and that's what my job is. And, you know, I wish I had a longer career. Yeah, of course. But, you know, I regret nothing. I look back and all the good and the bad decisions I made, I live with it. That's just kind of what creates what I am right now. And, yeah, I mean, I wish I would pitch longer, but my 3 or 4 years of success was amazing. I mean, it was a high of the high, so I was lucky. Very gratitude that's basically the word I looked at because I was lucky to be there.
Kevin.
So growing up, I think I read that you played hockey.
Oh yeah.
You're from Montreal, so I was just curious, how did you end up going into baseball, and was there like somebody that you like looked up to that got you into pitching and whatnot?
Well, my dream was to be a hockey player. That's what I wanted to be. And then the glasses you got, I thought I was a handsome brother. I was a fighter. I was a guy that loved to go, just go for 30 seconds to 45 seconds on the ice. And I really think that's what built me as a closer. When I became a closer after starting, I think really it made me a guy that just goes aggressive. I'm 100% all out. When I'm on the mound, I'm super emotional. And I'm really not like that during the day or anytime except on the mound. I'm really, really different guy. And it's, that was my luck because I was a hockey player and I decided to play baseball because my dad told me to play other sport. He goes, you can't play hockey all year. It was too expensive. He goes, you got to do something else. Baseball's outside. Summers in Montreal, they're not very long, so you got to enjoy it. So I just played another sport and I fell in love with the game. It's like playing chess and just, I love baseball. I really fell in love with it and I'm still involved in the game. So it was hard to quit hockey because that was my dream. But when they told me, I can make money playing baseball, I'm like, hey, sign me up. I'm in.
Brian.
What I read that you attempted multiple comebacks after your shoulder injury halted your career. What was it that caused those comeback attempts to fall short, and what is the next chapter for Eric Gagne?
I'm still trying to come back in my head. I'll never quit. I'll never quit. Well, the reason why I came back because I wanted to play WBC. I never had a chance to play WBC. I was hurt, and I was on a contract and wouldn't let me do it. And then my second comeback was I want to play in the Olympics. That was my biggest goal. I want to play in the Olympics. And that was one of my pride, play for my country. If I just have the Olympic experience, because I missed it in 96 with Team Canada. And that's why. I love pitching. I love pitching. I love going out there. I train guys all the time. What's next for me is training. That's why I throw. I do a lot of different techniques. I do a lot of different workouts. And I'm just trying to improve myself as a coach. I got to feel what I feel. What I'm teaching is right. So I try to do that with them. That's why I try to stay in shape, keep throwing every day, and just try to teach, try to feel what they feel, and be part of it.
Paul.
Kevin, I covered his love of hockey when I represented him, so you better go back and watch that show and memorize that. All those questions were answered when I talked about that. Eric, you're doing some coaching now, and you've mentioned it. I read that piece of advice your dad gave you about transitioning to baseball, play longer. You ever channel, prior coach Richard Gagne in any of your coaching, or because I read where he was coach here in Little League, and so he must have transitioned quick with you there because he went from telling you to play another sport to being your Little League coach.
That's right, huh? No, my dad, he's there's a lot of what I do is it surprises me on a daily basis because I sound like him now. I'm like, wow, it's just like, it's crazy because he passed early. And I'm like, wow, that's everything I say. I've learned, when you're young, you don't listen, you just hear it, but you don't really listen. And when you get older, you're like, yeah, I guess he was right on certain things. And what I take from my dad is just being a positive presence, I think. You want to tell you the truth. You want to tell it like it is. Some guys are not good. You got to tell them why they're not good and how they need to get better. And my dad was very good at telling the truth, but at being honest with people, but at being super positive and finding a way to get some done. And for me, I think that's what, as a coach, you need to be positive. You need to be like, you know what, I'm here with you. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go through ups and downs, or you're not going to, it's not going to happen overnight. But I think it's very important to be there as a positive presence, and really kind of support them, be there for them.
So you won a Cy Young. That's not something that happens often for closers. Was it something that you were expecting, or were you just kind of like shocked that you got it?
I was very shocked. There's something I never expected, never thought it was possible. And I still don't believe that relievers should get the Cy Young award, whether unless a starter doesn't do their job and win 20 games or whatever. I don't think a reliever should win a Cy Young. I think it's fun, it's fine, it's great, it's very rewarding, it's a great honor, but I don't believe that. But I never expect that. I never saw it as a save as a personal stats. I saw it as a team win, and I think that's what really made me really thrive. And if you look at all my saves with the Dodgers, all my saves, we won the game. I think either Beltray hit a home run or Sean Green hit a home run. It was a team win, and that's what I loved about being a closer, because I just trying to preserve the win that the boys worked for 8 innings to get me in the game, get 3 outs, and that's kind of how I saw it. And it was an honor to be able to do that, because it's playing for the Dodgers, playing for that type of organization, that type of history, and put the Dodgers jersey on. It was an honor. It was fun.
The way that baseball is going, with starters pitching less and less, do you think there'll be more relievers winning Cy Youngs in the future?
I don't know. It depends on the rule change. I mean, you're looking at blown saves now. How do you value home blown saves? Now you're going to have all the extra innings blown saves. You got the ERA is going to be affected. If the game changes, I think if you look at a reliever, it doesn't matter. It can be a setup man that wins it. I don't believe a closer or a reliever should win the Cy Young. I don't believe a pitcher should win an MVP either. But there's always exceptions to every rule. If the guy dominates that 1 year, and if you guys, there's not guys that there's times that people don't hit 30 home runs, or they don't really dominate. And you know what? A guy like Akersley comes in and just sweeps because he's there and every day, and he gets 60 some saves or whatever. It happens. But to me, a reliever is just a reliever. It's just a guy that has the back end of the game and just trying to save the boys. A little bit of the heartburn, always going to be a little hard. It's going to be difficult, but you're just there to save not save, but preserve a win. And I don't think really closers care about the hardware. I really don't. I think they're there just to be part of the team. And, it's great. I didn't know they didn't have the real age relief man of the year anymore, but it's kind of cool.
2012, we learned.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Eric.
So what do they give now? What do they give for the relievers?
It's called the Relief Man Award now. It's boring, just like everything else has got. But I was thinking, you don't hear too much reference to rule aids anymore, do you?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I didn't even know it was done. I didn't know it was rule aids. Well, rule aids is actually a given name for that.
Yeah.
Maybe they went out of business or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what happened.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Eric. We appreciate it. Awesome to talk about your career and hear your views on these closers. Anything? I know you were coaching for the Rangers organization there for a while. You have plans to try and coach somewhere else, or?
We'll see. I mean, I love coaching in my backyard. I got a lot of guys in the off season. They come over. I got a lot of guys at AAA and the big leagues. So I stay in touch with the game. I own a B45, the bat company. So I'm always in the game. I learn a lot about the new technology. I'm a big techie, nerdy reliever that loves to learn about new technology and integration, how the data works, and how do you basically get the data to the player without really just being a robot. So that's kind of my new fun stuff. Take the data, translate it to the guys, and almost dumb it down or make it more efficient for the players to utilize.
Billy Bean, you got to get with Billy Bean, man.
He's the man.
Thank you for everyone watching tonight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on whatever you're listening on. Have a good night.